Welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is someone I had the wonderful opportunity to hang out with here in this beautiful city of New York. His name is Gabe Otero, and originally he grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and moved out here for school. Moved out here a couple of years ago and has been doing wonderful things for himself outside of the academic world, and I'm so happy about that. It's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to have him on the podcast. As musicians coming up, we all worry about how we're going to make a living, what we're going to do with our lives, and what the next step is as we finish high school and move out into college, university, or just jump right into the world. And Gabe, I admire for having ran with his instinct and took on the advice of some teachers as he relays in this podcast and went out into the real world, and he's been doing great for himself. So I wanted to have him on to talk about what he's been up to here in New York and how life has been and what it's like taking on the role of not just being a musician, but now being someone that has somewhat of a role of authority to book bands and be in a position to hire musicians always. The roles certainly do reverse, and other musicians certainly do treat you differently. So it's interesting getting into that conversation and just talking about, in general, what he's been up to. I hope y'all enjoy this wonderful podcast with the young, the talented, my man, Mr. Gabe Otero. What's happening, Gabe Otero?
What's up, man?
Thank you for being on Art Talk Music, my man. It's great to have you, bro. What's up with you, my man? It's great to be in New York. Great to see you out here in your fucking, your homegrown. I mean, really homegrown over the past 4 or 5 years, but I mean like the community you've been building and just the few opportunities I saw where you took me to and where we got to hang and see the clubs and stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming, man. It's good to see you.
Dude, it's great to see you, bro. How long you been living here in New York now, man?
About 4.5 years.
About 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And you came out here to study at City College, right?
Yeah. I don't know if I don't think I ever wanted to come to New York to study.
Right.
I came, I don't know. I wanted to go to school.
Yeah.
And I wanted really just to do music, and I felt like New York was the best place to do music. And I thought I'd go to a school in the best place to do music, so I picked a school in New York.
That's awesome. Now, am I correct in saying that Ron Carter was one of the adjunct teachers at City College?
Not when I was there. John Patitucci and Ron Carter were there before me.
Uh-huh.
Steve Wilson was the director when I was there.
Is that a saxophonist, Steve Wilson?
Yeah, amazing saxophonist.
Amazing saxophonist, yeah, of course.
Yeah, incredible. Steve Wilson.
Wow.
I actually never took a class with him because I dropped out before.
All right, now, that's something else I wanted to, and a reason I wanted to have you on the podcast, bro, because, it's something that all musicians think about whenever they're, like, going into the world of education and the opportunities that come upon us as musicians coming up in the world. It's like, you're a young kid in high school playing music, and you grew up playing in the church and stuff like that, and then started playing and gigging out and stuff like that, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, I'm gonna go do this. It's like the only right succession is after you finish high school, go find a college.
Yeah.
But you broke the mold, and you were like, fuck this, I'm not gonna stay in New Mexico, I'm gonna go out into a big city. And from being here a year and a half, you said? A year and a semester?
About a year and a half I did school.
So when did you start working when you came to New York, bro?
I was really lucky. I think my first gig was a couple months into moving here. The first day I moved here, when I first moved to New York, I was kind of I wasn't completely sure whether I had made the right decision at the school I was going to.
Okay.
I really wanted to go to New School, and I got accepted, and I got a little scholarship to New School, but I also wanted to do a minors in education, but because of my grades and shit, it was going to be tough for me to do that at New School.
Right.
So my dad convinced me to go to City College instead. So I went to City College, and
just because it was more financially reasonable, right?
It was definitely more financially reasonable, and I could also do the education thing there without having to, do
only be at a music conservatory.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I got there, I was kind of like, yo, I'm going to go to City College, not in the new school. And then
you were already kind of like unhappy.
Yeah, I wasn't super happy about that decision, honestly.
Yeah.
But that first day, it was, City College is in Harlem.
Yeah.
My dad was staying in Harlem. And the first night I wanted to go check out some music. So I go with my dad and my grandma downtown to Fat Cat, see some buddies of mine now who are playing. And my grandma was like, go to your dad's place because Harlem's dangerous. Don't go back to the dorms. Like, go to your dad's place. So when I go with my dad, and the stop we get off of, I hear music. I'm like, oh shit, there's music.
Yeah.
So I go to hear music, and it was at the Red Rooster, and every Monday they have music there, and I was just like looking outside, and it's like killing, and like the dudes are awesome. And one of the singers came up to me, he's like, hey man, come inside. But anyways, that's the place I would go there every week, and that's the place where I first sat in on bass in New York, and that band leader, Rakim, gave me my first gig in New York too.
Wow.
So within 2 months, I had, the first day I had met somebody I was going to be working with and, still work with.
It's awesome.
Till now. So I knew it was meant to be that I was supposed to go to City College,
Yeah.
Because if I wasn't going to City College, my dad wouldn't have been staying in Harlem,
So your dad moved out here with you?
No, he just came to help me move.
Got you.
Because I was...
But your grandma was living out here?
No, she was here visiting my aunt.
Got you.
Family.
Got you. That's tight, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you were in school for about a year and a half. Or I should say about a year, and you were already starting to get a lot of opportunities to start working.
Within a year, I had met a lot of people. It was really like I met the right people at the right time kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And within a year, I was working a little bit. I was trying so hard to learn songs. It's the thing about New York musicians, man. It's like they know so many songs. Opposed to musicians from a lot of different states.
Interesting.
I think out of all the musicians in the world, I think New York musicians probably know the most amount of songs. Like most amount of songs like cross different genres, different eras, just because, it's so expensive here and you just have to work a whole bunch to be able to survive, really.
So for means of survival, you're like, fuck it, I'm going to learn some reggae tunes. I'm going to learn some
for real
mariachi tunes.
Everything. Yeah.
That's
so like
awesome.
those first like 4 or 5 months, I was like literally like just going to the underground and all these like venues and like writing down every song they did.
Yeah.
And like
learning it.
Going home and putting on a Spotify playlist, and I just listen to it and learn it.
That's tight.
Yeah. So within a year, I knew enough songs to be working a little bit.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And so from working and from gigging and stuff like that, you started getting opportunities to work, and your teacher told you something about school. What was that?
Yeah. After we used to do these ensemble classes where they would give us like 3 songs. They'd put us in an ensemble of students.
Yeah.
And then we'd go and work on songs and then perform them in front of the classes. And after one of the ensemble classes, a lot of times in those things, I would end up taking the lead and like, making sure rehearsals went fine for those ensembles and stuff. Some great players too in those classes. But after one of those classes, he pulled me aside, and my professor, and he's like, not school's not for everybody, not in a bad way, but
it's true
like,
though.
School is not for everybody. He's like, when I was young, I had a good opportunity, and I had to leave school for it. And my parents weren't happy about it. That's what he told me. My parents weren't happy about it, but I knew it was the best thing for me to do at that time, and I did it. And later on in life, I came back, finished school, and now I'm a teacher. So I kind of felt the same way. My parents were not happy at all. My mom especially was not happy when I told her that I was not going to go back to school. But I just knew it was like it was the right decision for me to make at that time.
Yeah.
For me to do what I wanted to do. You went to school too, right, for music?
I did, man. I went to the University of New Mexico right out of high school. and I was there, and I was really unhappy about being there as well, man. I had applied to Portland State University. I had applied to North Texas. I applied to Berkeley. I applied to University of California, Northridge. A couple of schools that I really wanted to go to. And Portland State University was probably the closest of the actual schools that I was going to go to. Mm-hmm. But I decided to stay in New Mexico, and I was happy about that because, even though initially the reason I stayed there was because I had some friends and I had a girlfriend at the time who then I broke up with that girlfriend a couple months later and lost those friends. But, I ended up, growing and learning so much more from the community that New Mexico has of amazing musicians and learning more on the bandstand and, gigging and working out in the scene. And then eventually I had the opportunity to go study at New Orleans for a semester. Mm-hmm. And then towards the end of my studies, I studied in Cape Town for a summer semester in South Africa. But I'm very grateful for my studies, even though I fought a lot with my dad. Even, in my second and third year, I'd be like, Dad, let me just drop out. It wasn't even drop out. I wanted to change schools and go to where you were talking about you wanted to go, which was the new school. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go just live in a city like this city, like New York, or just go truly be there because, my best friend John Maestas, who he and I always talked about, you don't really pay all of this money to just go to a school and have the accreditation of going to that school. You go to that place and that school for the connections that you make and for the teachers that are there and who you're gonna go study with. And I was just always under the impression that what I was looking for was somewhere else. Yeah. And then I ended up realizing that everything I was looking for and needed was in New Mexico. And it's all inside of me,
That's deep.
But
it's interesting. I don't think I would be a good musician if I didn't live in New Mexico. It's a smaller scene. There's great musicians there. Yeah. But because it's a small scene, I think I got opportunities to do more than I would if I was in a bigger scene.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I think in big scenes, you certainly would have found opportunities as well, man. Like a cat like you who's hungry and ambitious is like, like you said, when you moved here, it's all about being in the right place in the right time. Yeah. And being in a city like Albuquerque doesn't necessarily mean because it's a small city that you're going to find opportunities to play. Mm. But if you're hungry and you're striving and you're working hard, people are going to take notice, as well as other people are going to eventually find out. And then eventually you start working, you did it. When did you start gigging? I mean, when you were 13, 14?
14.
I started gigging with D Brown, or who did you start gigging with first?
My first, I was playing in church and stuff, and somebody for church recommended me for a band to do a gig at the New Mexico State Fair, which is like when New Mexico State Fair comes, everybody in New Mexico is gigging, right? Right.
It's true. Yeah.
So I had this gig with this band called the Overcomers Praise Band. And
was it Ricky Warren's band? Whose band?
No, this was Vernon Kuntz.
Okay.
He was like a choir director. I think he was a choir director at God's House.
Okay.
And it was like God's House musicians. And I somehow got called for it. I think JR, JR Baldonado?
I don't know if I do.
He used to have that school that Sammy and Dee and I think Artie even taught there.
Okay.
It's like a modern school of worship.
Yes. I know who you're
Anyways, he recommended me for that gig, and I did the gig, and right after was Artie. Artie was playing with Mario Coleman and Ladder Praise, which D Brown was also part of, and Maurice used to play in, and I think Chris was playing in at the time.
Yeah.
And after I played, Artie came up. He's like, "Yo, come over here." I had met him once before. He's like, "Yo, come over." So I go over and I meet Mario, and he's like, "Hey, this is going to be your bass player now." He's like, "This is the last gig I'm doing for you guys." So ever since then, so I was 14 then, and then after that, I started playing with Mario and D. Like 2 weeks later, D Brown had his CD release, and I met him and did his CD release, played with Mario, and I started playing at New Hope Baptist Church and New Covenant with Maurice, doing both of those.
Now, at 14, 15, were you getting paid for those gigs?
I was. My first paid gig was that gig at State Fair, which I didn't know I was getting paid.
Woo!
And I'm like 14. I don't even think I got. I don't remember. I think it might have been like $25 or something. I think we had a rehearsal after.
Yeah.
And this Kevin, the musical director, like pulled out this wad of money and gave me like $20 or something like that. And he's like, "Hey, good job the other day, man." I was like, "Holy shit! I just made money doing a gig." And as like a 14-year-old, you're like, "Damn! I just like made money doing a gig.
I'm rich."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then church, they used to pay me. I think they used to pay me like $75 a week or something like that, to do church.
Yeah.
So like as a 14-year-old, that's like pretty fucking good money.
Dude, that's great money. Yeah. Absolutely, it's great money, man. So transitioning from church and starting to gig and stuff like that. I mean, I know you got into jazz for a while. You played upright. You know, you were working a little bit in town and stuff like that, and then you came over here and you kind of started moving in a different direction. You started playing a little bit more R&B, a lot more electric, right?
Yeah. Well, you actually gave me my first gig outside of church at Nexus Brewery.
Secular gig. He's praising the devil now that he ain't praising God.
Yeah. Yeah. With alcohol.
Man, it's an interesting, we were talking about this earlier as we were having some delicious Korean barbecue here in New York. We were talking about the relationship of people in the church as well as, we didn't even get into this, but just church musicians in general that don't play anything besides church music. Mm-hmm. And that's always been so interesting to me. I've respected and admired certain musicians that stay that way, but also just for the fact of some people have such a respect for their belief system that they truly do believe that their gift is only to be served towards the creator, if there is a creator. Mm-hmm. And that's beautiful and that's awesome. You know what I'm saying? But you were telling me about when I had hired you for that gig and you posted something online or someone found out from your church and they actually called your parents. Tell me about that again, bro.
Yeah. And I don't think it was they weren't trying I think
it wasn't bad. It's not bad intentions, but it's them from that religious standpoint.
Yeah. So this person was also a musician. And they used to do they used to do secular gigs as well. Mm-hmm. And he told me that one time he felt like he wasn't supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And one time I think he was doing a gig or something and somebody robbed his car and took his instruments. So he took that as a sign of, I'm in the wrong. Really? I shouldn't be doing this. Yeah.
Interesting.
So when he saw that I was doing that, he kind of felt maybe the same. He kind of felt like I should help him out and not send him so he won't go
not
down
steer
that
him
road
towards the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, he didn't want me to do that gig, but my parents came and they gave me the blessing, no pun intended, and let me do the gig, which awesome. I think, like I was telling you, I think that was the first time my parents were like, oh, I think he's serious about wanting to do music as a career. Which is pretty intense. I think at that age I already knew I wanted to be a musician full time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. I think it's definitely a green light whenever you get support from your parents, man.
Yeah.
I was telling you about my oldest brother and how he was a cage fighter and stuff, and he never realized his potential at all because he lacked that support from the home system. And I think anybody, whenever they love something and are passionate about something and they go for it and they don't feel that sense of support, there is that disconnect with them. Mm-hmm. And they're almost not able to blossom. They're not able to realize, like I said, their potential,
how was it because your dad's an artist? My
dad's a painter and a sculptor. Yeah, that's right, man.
How was it when did he always know that you were going to be a musician, that you were going to be an artist? Or
I remember always telling my parents that I knew what I wanted to do.
How old were you when you
I was in 7th grade. I was just starting to perform, just starting to play guitar in general, But it was the first opportunity I had to perform in front of people. And I realized that music can change the energy in a room.
Yeah.
And it was such a powerful experience for me that I realized right then and there that this is what the fuck I'm going to do with my life, because I didn't want to do anything else, And I carried that with me from 7th grade to 8th grade to 9th grade to 10th grade to 11th grade, 12th grade into college, and then out of college. And then I started realizing that, like, yo, actually, like, there are musicians everywhere that I go that are working and are playing, and they also have to have some other supplemental job to make ends work or make ends meet. And that was kind of when art kind of came into the picture for me and stuff. But I mean, my father from the get-go supported me aspiring towards being a creative person and make that creative outlet and expression my livelihood, you know. But he was also someone who, you know, spoke to me very soberly and was like, you know, you got to make money. You know, you can't just get by with these $75 gigs that you're doing, or $100 gigs every weekend. You know, it's like you're making $300 a week. You know, you're making $500 a week. That's fine. You know, but that's not even every week. Yeah. And so I definitely had the support from my dad, but also the grounding of my father to really be like, you know, look for something deeper. You know, because, and not deeper in the sense of profound and meaningful, but like something deeper that literally meant deeper and larger numbers financially.
Yeah.
You know,
to be able to support you.
Yeah, man, because today or tomorrow, you know, we were talking about this, like today or tomorrow, you know, you get married or you have a kid or you have a family or whatever. And then, you know, it's not just you that you're providing for. Yeah. And it's wonderful to be creative and feel like you're an independent artist. But if you're not making ends meet for whatever situation you have, then it's not working out. Right. Yeah. You got to figure something else out. Mm-hmm. So you said you're teaching now.
Teaching?
Yeah. Is that what you said earlier?
No.
You're not
I'm
teaching.
Not teaching, no. But I've had students. I've had a couple students.
But you went to school with the intention from your father's ideas of like, maybe you could also pursue education to some degree.
Yeah, I always figured even...
That's like a backup plan, right?
As a backup plan, but even more so. And I actually want to ask you this too. Uh-huh. But if I wasn't a musician, I'd want to be a teacher.
If you weren't a musician, you want to be a teacher. Why?
Yeah. I don't know. I always felt like I enjoy just, you know, for lack of a better word, just like enlightening someone on an idea or something. Yeah. I think that's why I like being a musical director. Yeah. Is because I can help people understand things better and I feel like I can speak to people, try to steer them in the right direction, and without making them feel bad or anything about it. Right. So I always liked that idea, and you know, all those movies, you know, all those drama movies.
What do you mean, the drama movies?
Like those movies, the movies about the teacher on these like
having the impact on the kids.
Yeah. Like Lean on Me and this. Yeah. No, but like I always thought that was like great. You know, my parents have always been like really giving people. Yeah. You know, my mom,
of course.
You know, they've always been really giving and sacrificing. And,
yeah.
And I always felt like, you know, I guess in some way I do that with music is I give people my music, but I always felt like you could do more. I always thought the idea of doing more for people is like a good thing, you know, which is another reason why I like doing what I do with hiring musicians and stuff, is because I feel like in a way, you know, there are a lot of musicians who have these other jobs. Yeah. That can't just do music.
Can't just make ends meet.
Yeah.
Playing, yeah.
And, you know, it makes me feel good that, you know, like, you know, from one year to another year, like some of the musicians I hire can quit a day job because they're working enough, or, you know, somebody.
So give me a little bit of background on this. I know this, but I mean, tell the people. Now you moved to New York, you were going to school, and then you started gigging a little bit, and then an opportunity came up for you to work outside of just playing your bass. And what was that?
Yeah, so I was playing with somebody, and I was doing gigs around town, and I started getting into doing events and weddings and stuff, and eventually that kind of somebody I was working with kind of expanded, started giving me more of creative role and kind of helping them find musicians and just work really as a musical director for this band. And it eventually became even bigger, and he merged with another company, and we're here in one of the, the beautiful, the showcase room that they have downstairs. But it got, pretty big, and now I'm the musical director for this agency, On the Move, and I call musicians to do these events that they have together, and I kind of put them together. I rehearse them, I make arrangements, and just really have like these bands that are, I think, awesome, and I'd put up against most any corporate band or any kind of band in this industry.
Right.
So that's what I do. I just kind of do that on top of me playing with, around town and with different artists and
right
and whatnot.
Right. Now, how is the interactions between musicians now that you have that role of giving gigs out? Because as I saw tonight, I mean, very clearly it's not a sense of jealousy or entitlement, but when you have the power in some sense of the word to define if some people have a good month or have a good year or not, how does that impact your interactions with the musicians that you meet and that hear about you and that then come try and approach you? Because I'm sure that's, there's, not to say mooch, but there is certainly some sense of trying to buddy with you so that they can get some gigs, right?
Yeah, it happens sometimes, but I think I'm really clear. I always try to. I think when you're in this kind of position or that kind of position, I was talking to my buddy about this too. When you're in that kind of position, you have like a higher level of responsibility, because beyond you just calling somebody for a gig, you're also, like putting money in their pockets and putting food on their tables in a kind of way.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I always try to keep consistent people for two reasons. Number one, I get to have a consistent product and I can work with them and make it what I want it to be.
Yeah.
And two, the people get a kind of sense of consistency in their lives as far as finances as well. Mm. So whenever I talk to like the other day, somebody called me and was like, hey, this guy calls me all the time. And I saw him one time at Groove, that club we went to.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, Gabe, 2 words. And I haven't seen this guy in
Yeah.
He's I'm like, what 2 words? He's like, weddings. I was like, oh my God. But he called me the other day, and
that is one word, by the way.
That is one word, 2 syllables. No, but he called me the other day, and I let him know this. Like, the people that I hired, I try to be consistent with it. Yes. So
it's got to be some sort of also you're playing as politically correct. You're playing the middle as much as you can, right?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, there's a sense of trying to respect the artists that you work with, as well as keep that relationship there so that you can hire them in the future. Oh
yeah, of course, definitely. I find different opportunities to hire different people. You know what I mean? Like, as far as the more consistent stuff, I have more consistent players, but I have other stuff and some artist stuff and whatnot that I call people for, whether it's a club gig. And I work outside of me doing this. I work a lot with those same musicians.
Yeah.
So we're always connected, and a lot of them are my buddies and stuff,
Right.
And it's unfortunate. I wish I had enough gigs to just give everybody a gig. You know what I mean?
Without a doubt, man.
But I think most people understand like that we're buddies, or I really like them as a musician, and if I do have something that I feel like could be something that's good for them, then they have it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think I try to keep that as a thing.
That's got to be such an interesting role to take on as a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, from gigging, first of all, from going to school, from just becoming legally fucking able to drink, to then I'm sure before you were 21, you were already starting to hire musicians and stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't tell people my age.
Right. Right.
And actually, I think it was because of New Mexico. Because I felt like people knew my age in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And
so you didn't want people to judge you based off of that.
Yeah. Like I always heard musicians tell me, "Oh, you're a good bass player for being so young."
Yeah, I hate that shit. Right.
I always thought I was a good musician just as a good
In
musician.
general, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Not like
Based
for
on
my
your
age.
Right.
So I didn't want that to happen when I moved here.
So you didn't allow that age restriction to get in the way. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I didn't tell people. And then when I turned then I started feeling more confident in my age, and I felt more comfortable, and I started telling people, and it was cool. When I first moved here, I told people I was older than I actually was.
So they're like, "Whoa, wait, hold on, you got younger?"
Yeah.
Is it that baby cream? What you got, bro? What you got that facial cream at?
Yeah.
So, from starting a gig and from starting to work as like as a booker in some way, as a musical director in some way, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I mean, like you're doing great. You've got a salary job and you're working amazingly. In the medium that you're working within as an agent, as a director, as this. What do you see happening within 5 to 10 years?
That's tough. I have aspirations of what I want to do. One thing I want to keep is I always want to. I really enjoy what I do here, and I think it's a good medium for me to be connected, not just to the people I work with, which I really enjoy, and getting to deal with clients, and curating music for evenings.
Yes.
Sometimes it's more specific, only doing 1 or 2 songs that like have great arrangements and stuff. I enjoy doing that. So beyond what I want to do, I want to always keep this as what I do now as kind of a base, as something that is still going. Which, when I did get into this agreement, this is something that's supposed to happen. Is that I'm supposed to be able to,
continue working,
do what I want, because ideally I would like to be on the road with somebody as a musical director.
That's the dream
for an
gig.
artist. Yeah, I want to be an artist, director for a musical artist. Which I love. I think, and this is something that not a lot of musicians get, that you get, is that, music it's much more than music, I think. It's much more than just being on stage and playing. I think there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And especially when you're dealing with artists, I guess put it like this. I am not blessed like you are, or an Artie is, or, a D Brown, just New Mexico guys I love. I'm not blessed with, like you guys, to be able to write music and play it and perform it, and write more music and perform it. I don't have that ability as far as I'm concerned, or,
I disagree, but okay, go on.
And I'm fine with that. And I think we'll talk about, because I want to hear what you think.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm good at is actually getting other people's music and making it sound better, or adding some kind of arrangement or rhythm, get the rhythm section right for certain things, or come up with some creative ideas for those songs. I think that's what I'm good at. Whether it's in the studio, like helping arrange music in the studio, writing some sections, maybe doing stuff like that, more production stuff. But I think that's where my calling is. I'm supposed to be in the back making it work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not everybody has that. And I feel like I do. So I want to be able to do that with different artists. It makes me happy, whether I'm playing or not, to be able to listen to something that I was able to make better.
Yeah, that you touched, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's awesome, man. The wonderful thing about music is that there's so many relationships with it. You've got your street musicians who don't know any music theory and can play circles around so many musicians that know all the music theory in the world. And then you've got these absolute music geniuses, someone like this guy in the UK, Jacob Collier, who just like, blows through all kinds of, complex musical ideas and just creates, like unashamedly, like without any limitations of what instrument or what things he wants to create.
He's
amazing, as well as like the amazing ability of someone like, I'm sure you saw this Erykah Badu NPR Tiny Desk concert that came out not too long ago, with her music director that she said has been with him for a long time, but I never heard his name or anything like that. But he's one of those guys in the background of this huge artist's discography, of her work, of her sound. I mean, those people are an integral part of what makes an artist the artist, and they're the guys working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then with the music, there's the amazing, incredible guys who are the engineer minds that capture the moments of what music is. Bobby Shue, amazing trumpet player from New Mexico, says a recording is just proof that the music happened.
Yeah.
But there are people who embrace their love for music through just wanting to capture it and just record it. And then there were, back in the day, not so much anymore. I know that there still are people like that in Nashville who actually go to an office from 9 to 5, write tunes. You know what I'm saying?
I know a couple of those here.
Yeah, man, I'm sure there still are here, but just pump out. They're like a factory where they're always constantly composing and writing and doing new things. And I know for me, I'm not that person because I have a different relationship with music where, man, like a composition for me takes years to finish. One of the songs on my album, which is about a psychedelic, in the same way that Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds by the Beatles is about LSD, I put a song out there called Deep Mystical Telepathy, which is about DMT, a psychedelic that is very potent. It's the most potent psychedelic known to man. But the experience of that song and writing that song was something that happened over 14 years.
Wow.
Like I had composed the song as the initial idea and the initial chord movement of the chords for the main part of the song when I was in 8th grade. And like to then take that idea and over time have it change its meaning and connect with me in different experiences throughout my life and different milestones. And it wasn't until I graduated from UNM and I went out thinking that I wanted to move to Nashville, and then turned around and was like, nah, I don't want to move to Nashville. Went back to New Orleans for a month and then went out to study some North Indian classical music. That then in that experience of being in that place, of studying North Indian classical music out in the Bay Area, this scale, North Indian classical music, I don't know if you know this or not, but isn't based on harmony at all. It's only based on scales and on a drone. Right? Yeah, ragas in North Indian classical music has 2 notes that are the drones that are being played by an instrument called the tempura, and that is the root, the quote unquote what is for us harmony, and then the scale that they play is the coloration, is the mood, is, and they actually have different times of day for different songs and different ragas and stuff. And they actually truly believe that if you play the ragas at the right time of day and in tune, they will bless you. But if you play them at the wrong time of day and out of tune, they will curse you.
Wow.
So that relationship with music and that experience of having written the song back then and then going to that place, and I learned a scale that, North Indian classical music is famous for having, like the harmonic minor scale has different scale notes going up the scale than it does going down the scale. And I learned this scale that's a major scale going up and then, adds a couple different notes coming down. And that scale was the gum that connected this song together from all of the years before when I had written it to this beautiful idea that I could never really complete. And that experience that happened so many years later was what then connected that song and sealed that song as being done, quote unquote, because it's not done until you record it, right? And so, if I was to compare myself with someone like Arthur Metters, who is a prolific writer, I mean, that guy, you look at his computer and the ideas and the songs and the things that are always coming out of his mind are constant.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And even though I certainly have that through other mediums now that I'm making art and doing podcasting and stuff like that, composition and writing songs and playing them is a passion of mine, and I strongly feel like that is my purpose as an artist to do. But at the same time, I wouldn't consider myself a prolific, writer, or even like a serious writer and composer, and like quote unquote songwriter. You know what I'm saying? Like what people that move to Nashville are.
Mm-hmm.
And I admire those people, you know what I'm saying? But like, I've got a different relationship with music, and so do you, and so does everyone that gets into the music. Like someone like a bass player from New Mexico who's now living in Nashville, Zach Fowler, who is killing it on the road right now with really a wonderful
Low Cash
country band called Low Cash, and they're on the road 300 plus days a year, 280 days a year.
He just got engaged, right?
He did just get engaged. Congratulations to Zach Fowler out there. I almost called you your brother's name, Nick. But I mean,
he was actually someone I really looked up to. We never really got to talk too much. I don't even think, I don't know if he remembers me or anything, but I remember looking up to him a whole bunch. It was interesting. I wanted to ask you this. There weren't too many musicians while I was in New Mexico that left New Mexico. Yeah. I think around the time I left, like a whole bunch of musicians left too.
Yes.
Ferris, Maurice.
John
Asher moved. Sammy moved away and stuff.
That's right. Then Chris, right?
Yeah, Chris. Like a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
But what made you want to leave? And what always brought you back?
Family always brought me back, and having a home always brought me back. And it wasn't until I left and came back and realized that New Mexico was my home that I had that strong connection with it. But I always wanted to get out. I love New Mexico, but being a musician, I always wanted to go to the cities. You know what I'm saying? I felt like a city boy, even though I grew up outside the city of Albuquerque in the East Mountains. And I dreamt of going to New York to study and just like take off from there, And so leaving New Mexico was always in my plans and always in my desires. When I had the opportunity to leave and go to New Orleans and come back, I realized my deep connection with New Orleans was going to be there forever. And I could always go back to that city.
Yeah. But
that city taught me that I need to ask the question to myself of who am I truly? Great trumpet player Terrence Blanchard talks about his time of meeting Wayne Shorter. His experience of meeting Wayne Shorter was so profound for him because when he met him, he wanted to be, Terrence wanted to be the Wayne Shorter of the trumpet, And he tried and it wasn't until he met Wayne Shorter that he realized that was never going to happen, because who Wayne Shorter was as an individual, as a person, was a direct reflection of who he was as an artist. And that was his scariest moment as an artist, because then he had to truly turn to himself and ask himself, who am I? And when I went to New Orleans, I had all of these things in my mind that I thought I was. I thought I was a jazz musician. I thought I wanted to be this, side man. And I thought I wanted to, dedicate myself to learning more about the craft of jazz. And I still do. But I truly had to ask myself that question of who am I? What do I really love? And like, what am I actually in this for? And when I went back to New Mexico, I realized there was a lot more than just performing and just getting up on stage and just getting up and performing a genre of music that is our only true American art form that we've dedicated to that we've given to the world. But more than that, it was like I had to re-ask myself the question of like, why do I really like music? And when I went back to New Mexico, I was so grateful that New Mexico always has open arms. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a small town, anyone that kind of comes back is able to kind of jump back into the movement of things. And I didn't just jump back into the movement of music, but I started doing something else, which was arts and medicine, which was the course that eventually brought me down to South Africa. And I had a reconnection with my inklings of wanting to go to school for psychology when I was in high school because I wanted to be a music therapist. You know,
So
I don't know if you ever knew that book, Oliver Sacks's Musicology, Musicophilia. I mean, but
so that's I said I would be a teacher if I wasn't a musician. Is that what you
I would definitely be a music therapist.
Yeah.
Or I would be a sex therapist.
Yeah.
That was probably my other favorite thing. I wanted to be an evolutionary psychologist, or be just a psychologist that specialized in music. And
Wow.
I mean, Oliver Sacks, who wrote that book, Musicophilia, if you haven't read it out there, I definitely recommend that book. Amazing book about all things music from the perspective of a neuroscientist. Studied the brain. I know I'm not saying that correct, but this guy is a
Neurologist.
Thank you. This guy's someone who did profound movements within the field of music therapy, like actually treating people with actual music ailments, where they'd have like a recurring part of a song just like hit them like a nightmare that would just like come back at them, you know.
Oh, wow.
And I was so enamored by the idea of being a psychologist, but beyond being a psychologist, using music and working within the field of music to try and help people out.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that like my relationship with music and expression from when I came back to New Mexico from New Orleans was a lot deeper than just wanted to perform and just wanted to go out and show myself as an artist and play Giant Steps or play Autumn Leaves. It was more about connecting with people.
Yeah.
And I realized that I can connect with people in so many different ways. And I still find different ways of connecting with people, you know. As I was telling you, in the past couple of years, I've been making art, and that has been a life-changing experience for me, too. I've been podcasting in the past couple of months, which has been amazing for me as well, because I feel more and more like I'm doing what I want to do, as opposed to doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or what I thought I was supposed to be doing, because there were little voices that I was creating in my head at that point. And so when I came back to New Mexico, it was like, this is home. And who I am is going to be defined every day as I move forward.
Yeah.
And all I know is that I will continue traveling this world and this country as much as I can every year, every month. But I'll always come back to New Mexico, and I will always continue creating. If it's creating art, if it's creating conversations, if it's creating books, if it's creating, videos, if it's creating songs, if it's anything. You know, I don't think there is a limit for us. And New Mexico helped me realize that. And that's definitely why I always love it. But I always go out still because, it's not just the land of enchantment. They call it the land of entrapment as well,
I think it's like that in most places, too.
Most places anyone goes up, it's
anywhere,
like they want to get out.
I think it's important to leave to really find out what you.
Yes.
You remember Ryan Lee. Mm-hmm. He's the guy who kind of got me into jazz for real. Mm-hmm. He was in New Mexico for a few months only.
Yeah, half a semester.
Yeah. we
Good
got
for
along,
him, though.
We got along really well, and he invited me to go to Kansas City. So I think I was like 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And he invited me to Kansas City, and I had literally just started playing upright, and I was, not good, and I just started listening to music, to like jazz and stuff, and like getting into that. And I go to like Kansas City. It's like it's like a hidden gem of jazz there.
It's a city rich with history of jazz, for sure.
Amazing history.
Kansas City swing.
Bird.
All the people that came out of there.
Yeah,
right?
man. But amazing. It's like amazing. And I remember I went to go here and play somewhere.
Yeah.
I was there for about a month. And I went to go here and play somewhere one of the first nights there, and I heard this bass player, and he sounded so good. And for those who don't know, I'm a bass player.
I play the bass.
Yeah.
If you didn't know about my low voice.
No, but I heard this bass player, man, and I was literally depressed after. I'm like, yo, this shit is crazy. I'm like,
yeah,
this guy's great, and I'm not great. So I felt like not playing that much anymore. And I told Ryan that. And he told me, he's like, yeah, that's a really good bass player. He's like, but you have stuff that he doesn't have. So he told me. and you can do things better than he can, and he can do better, but he can do things better than you can.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, like, I have a thing that I do.
You have something to offer.
And it wasn't until maybe not too long ago, since I've moved here to the city, to New York, that I've found out what that was. And it's what I was saying earlier, I feel like, I always listen to these musicians and always listen to these people who play a certain way, but it isn't really. And I always wanted to play like that. I always wanted to play their basses, get pedals like them, and stuff like that. And I wasn't really thinking about what was in my head to do, which brings me back, what we were talking about, like theory and like these musicians who are into theory and stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yannick Gwizdala, he said that theory is supposed to be able to it's just a language, and all it's there for is for you to be able to express, to literally talk to somebody about what you were doing.
Learn the language, right?
It doesn't have so much to do about how you play, but more to explain to people what you just played. Yeah, I just got lost in my train of thought.
It's a connection for sure, like that idea of music theory and connecting the dots to people, like music, like when a musician empowers himself by learning music theory, they're unlocking the elements, the mechanisms that make music.
Are you really into theory?
I mean, I certainly was grateful to have had a wonderful connection with music theory growing up. Check this out. When I was at Manzano High School, I was a freshman. I came in. Manzano had an amazing guitar program, and
who was the guitar teacher there? Was Michael Anthony?
The main guitar teacher. I actually just had him on my podcast, and he's by this time, his podcast will already be out. His name's Mr. O, David Ostrovitz.
Okay,
it's actually an incredibly recognized and well-respected guitar teacher across the country. I mean, he won incredible amounts of awards and was literally the best guitar program in the Southwest. He was a guitar teacher there for 35 years. But Mr. O hired about 4 or 5 other guitarists to help manage his classes, because that guy had thousands of students. Not thousands, but I mean about 1,000 plus students every semester, every year.
Was Silva, Mr. Silva ever?
No, Ben Silva was at UNM.
At UNM.
Yeah, but Michael Anthony was there. What?
Silva gave me. He used to work at this high school I went to. Or to the Papa. Well, I was for middle school.
Oh yeah.
And he gave me a book that kind of got me into theory.
What is that? Which book was that?
Ted Green, Chord Chemistry.
Ooh. I mean, that's wonderful. That is like that's. I mean, Ted Green. If anyone doesn't know who Ted Green is, an amazing jazz guitarist. I do believe that's who you're speaking about.
Yeah.
That wrote the book, but. Tremendous musician, but I mean, I'm sure that book and that perspective is even more so from a jazz perspective, right?
Yeah, well,
or was it not even? It was just from a guitar and from.
It was from
because
I was trying to play guitar at the time and stuff, but it really opened my mind to how music works, which I don't, I don't fault somebody who doesn't study
music theory and stuff.
Theory that much,
right.
if they're doing the gig right, what I mean, if they're doing good on the gig, I mean,
yeah,
because the problem with theory is that you can get so locked into it that you don't play.
I think that's totally true, man. Yeah, without a doubt, people get too locked up and rigid within the rules to allow themselves to express themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of these musicians who sound the best, who like sound good doing a gig, a lot of them aren't really into theory like that. I'm speaking a lot outside of
jazz for sure, because within jazz there is the range, right? There are amazing musicians like Errol Garner, who did not read a lick of music notation, nor did he know any music theory. He just learned everything by ear.
Mm-hmm.
But my relationship with music from early on, from going to Manzano, was I was a freshman and started studying with Michael Anthony, and then a senior guitar player had signed up for jazz band, and then turned out he didn't want to do jazz band, so he heard about me and asked me to come do jazz band in his place, be his replacement. And my jazz band teacher ended up being my soccer coach. And so we had this connection before before I met him in the class. And I was the captain of the JV team, and he was the coach of the JV team. So it was like we had this awesome connection. And sophomore year, he taught a theory class. And I took that theory class, and it taught me how to read music. It taught me basic theory, and it taught me, basic, I say basic, but it certainly got into some complex theory that truly aided me with the ability and the tools to be able to pass the UNM music theory program, which kids that started in the music theory 1 class were like 250 or so. And by the 4th semester of music theory 1, 2, 3, and 4, we were down to about 30 students, man, 40 students. You know what I'm saying? And it was because people who had never studied music theory and then just jumped in were thrown into the fire. Yeah. And being, aided with learning about music theory from early on, it wasn't like I educated myself upon music theory. It wasn't until John Maestas really came around and I started studying with Michael Anthony deeper that I learned what the actual mechanisms are that you learn and what the actual elements of music are as you break them down into music theory and actually learn how to use them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Not just what they are and identifying them, but then taking them and moving a step beyond just knowing them, understanding it, and being able to distinguish it, and then actually making music. Yeah. And actually improvising. But I was grateful for that because it's not that I'm a music theory buff now or even am serious about music theory. Like, I don't really like music theory or even like to think about music theory. It's like John Mayer says when he talks about, compositions and stuff, he's like jokes about what chord this is with what extensions and what flat this and flat that or sharp this. It's like that stuff's awesome to know, but then forget about all that stuff, But having known that and having learned the rules, I'm able to truly speak from a place of understanding, as well as working in any genre. If you know theory and you have a good ear, you're able to hear your way through anything.
Yeah, I was actually going to turn into me asking you questions.
Go on, bro.
Sorry
for what, man?
Am I allowed to ask you questions?
Ain't no rules in this, bro. You can ask me anything you want to, man. Just not my social security number. No credit card.
I'll ask you off. No, were you into music before you started getting to theory? Before you started playing?
I came up as a street musician, quote unquote. And I say that, but it was really just for like 2 years, 3 years.
No, that's important. Yeah.
But my connection with music, and actually from the teacher I had in middle school, I started playing when I was in 6th grade. And in 7th grade, my middle school had a guitar program. And the guitar teacher was a guy that taught AP classes. So he was a very smart gentleman, but also a very unorthodox music teacher. He didn't believe in explaining music through notation, didn't believe in music theory, actually called the blues scale an oxymoron, which is kind of true, because most people that that play a blues scale don't fucking sound bluesy at all. You know what I'm saying? And he related music to us in 7th grade and in 8th grade as we ought to approach music in this unbinded by music theory way of just using our ears and being musicians of instinct, right? And I embraced that and loved Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan because of that, and older guys like the Kings, like B.B. Albert and Freddie King and Lonnie Johnson, who I later got into, or Robert Johnson, Muddy Waters, Big Bill Broonzy. All these old blues guys that don't have anything to do with music theory in any capacity, but just expressed raw emotion.
And I think it's the same thing with even artists outside of that. And in fact, I would assume that if there was an ideal way to teach somebody music, it wouldn't be starting with theory. That's just
what would you think the ideal, or obviously,
I think the ideal I personally think the most important thing is like listening to music, like beyond like, you know.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
You know, because you can know all the theory in the world, but if you don't listen to the music and you don't know how it fits in context to something, then what are you doing?
Yes.
Are you really playing music, or are you just playing theory? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would assume that the ideal way to start is by playing music without necessarily knowing what you're doing, like messing up and shit. And then listening to the music style that you're playing. Like if you're trying to play R&B and all this, you know, it's a problem. A lot of musicians can play something, but you don't feel good when they play it. You know what I mean? And I think it's because they're intellectual about it and they don't really feel it. Yeah. So if you are listening to it a lot, you know what the music needs to feel the way it does. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I get on people all the time, man.
About listening.
I get upset. I listen to a lot of music, and I don't it's not good. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I don't get to practice as much as I would like to practice. But me listening to music
is your practice. Is your schooling, right?
It schools me all the time, and I feel like I can listen to music every day and get new stuff and learn how to approach things a better way, a different way. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I just feel like theory is amazing and it's necessary. It's definitely necessary to be able to be a successful musician. You definitely need to have at least some sense of some kind of theory. Right. But if that's the starting point, I think you're going to lose in many ways you're not going to. You have the possibility to maybe lose that.
I agree, man. I agree. I think there's something hands-on about when you get in there and get gritty with what you're actually doing as opposed to getting scientific, as well as you disengage, students and kids whenever I don't know how much experience you've had with like teaching young kids, but shorter and shorter attention spans are very much so a reality.
It's what Victor Wooten says. He always talks about music is a language, and he's like, when you started speaking, you weren't corrected. You just would talk. Yeah. And you would, eventually you got to a place where you had some kind of basic vocabulary, and then they started improving it and using grammar and, phonics and all this shit. Yeah. School. Yeah. To make it better. But you didn't start with that shit. You didn't start out reading and you didn't start off all that stuff.
Just start doing it.
You just started doing it. Yeah. And then once you kind of had it, you were able to perfect it.
That's right. I think that's a good philosophy of coming at music. Now, how do you listen to music? When do you listen to music?
I listen to music all day, every day.
In every capacity. Headphones while you're walking.
I listen to on my headphones.
Is that the most? Or do you like listening to like speakers and?
I can't really be too loud. Yeah. I have roommates and
it's kind of a New York thing, right? Not just New York, but I mean big city in general.
Wherever you
apartment life. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't be too loud, but I listen to music constantly. And I listen I listen to it in different ways. You said, how do I listen to it?
I mean, yeah, like for me, I listen to music a lot in the car. I listen to music.
Oh, you're saying by what
when I'm I listen to music. Like if I'm trying to learn something, I'll listen to songs over and over and over.
Yeah, I have to do the same thing. I can. If I have a crazy week and I have to learn, 4 songs every day. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then I have like a weekend gig where I have to learn like 10 songs. Jeez, yeah. Then I'm just gonna listen to it a few times
on repeat.
I really, if I have to learn a song quick, I don't know how do you do it?
If I have to learn a song quick, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. If I gotta learn a song quick for a gig, I'm gonna go as easy as I can, and I'm gonna try and find the guitar tabs on that song, and then I write down my own chart based off of those chords. Because always guitar tabs are wrong,
super wrong at different keys.
So you gotta not even just the different keys, just like shitty, capo tuning. You see all the time. You know?
I hate that shit.
But I mean, if I have to learn a song quick, then I listen to it, and besides the tap thing, I'll listen to it, and then I'll just write out a chart based on the root movement. You know,
it's tough for me. I can write out charts, but it's tough for me to remember if I wrote out a chart. Really? Is that weird?
I mean, that is weird. I create a little folder if I got, or like if I got a gig, then I create a folder with the list. You know,
if I write a chart. It depends what mood I'm in, but for the most part, if I'm writing out a chart, I write it down really quickly. And what happens is I write it down so that I read it. I don't write it down for me to remember.
No, that's the point. That's the point, because I'm not like John Maestas is the type of musician that can listen to songs and listen to it over and over again and just in his head get it.
Yeah. And
that's awesome. But for me, I know that if I was to try and do that, I'm gonna miss some very integral moments of what I'm supposed to be doing.
I guess I'm more like John in that sense. Then, what I'll do is I'll
fly
listen
by the seat of your pants more.
I listen to it a lot, and maybe what I'll do is I'll listen to it like once or twice, try to fake through it once on the bass, and then go on to the next song. And then I'll listen to it one more time or something before I have to play it or on my way to the gig, and then I'll be fine.
It's got to be like a church thing, because I know that Artie and Ferris used to do that. They used to listen to a song on CD on the way to a gig, and then be like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah. I definitely have to do that whole bunch. Yeah.
All right, man, we're going to take a little break for just a second.
Okay.
All right, and we're back. Little bathroom smoke break. All right, okay, we're good. So what's up, man?
Nothing.
So I have to ask you, bro. How is it like realizing something that you wanted to do? Like, how do you feel now, like living here for 4 years? I know you're happy. I know you're doing well financially and stuff, but like, is this what you thought you were going to be doing?
In this way, no. I guess in a sense, yes. Since yes and no. I knew I think, we were talking earlier about things that we're good at.
Yeah.
I always thought there was a couple things I was good at. I thought I was good at playing different kinds of music.
Mm-hmm.
And I could sound at least kind of authentic playing different kinds of music.
Yeah.
And I love playing just in general.
Yeah.
And the reason why I wanted to come to New York, is, I was really into Glasper, and, like I love Derek Hodge, and, I saw him being able to play upright and electric and get to play R&B and jazz.
Yeah.
Get to play hip hop and, whatever. He can do anything. And I felt like I could do that here.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yes, I'm doing what I thought I was going to do. I get to play different kinds of music.
Yeah.
I get to, do rock one day, do R&B one day.
Yeah, do it all.
Do a Latin gig, on the rare occasion I get to, but I love to. Country gigs or anything. I get to do all kinds of different music, which is what I really enjoy. Another way I thought when I moved here that I was going to be doing a lot more jazz than I have and have had the opportunity to. And I've just kind of gone in a whole nother direction as far as that goes. So I guess it's a yes and no thing.
Yeah.
I love it here, and I got to play music, which is really, beyond, I always said I would be happy, just like as a person, at the very minimum, if I just got to play music.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
so to have a lot more than that is like,
and to have a lot more than that is like really a big blessing. You know what I mean?
it's a beautiful bargain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the worst part about being a director and an agent, and I should say not the worst in the bad sense. I'm saying, like, what's the hardest part of your job?
I think it's there's a couple things off the top. One thing is I feel like some relationships can turn from being like good friendships into just being like a boss friend, a boss, kind of thing. And there's been like a couple people where I wish that relationship didn't change. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely, man.
There's also, relationships are hard to maintain and like keep everyone happy, whether it's like friends or family. I have a girlfriend. Like, my girlfriend doesn't get to have all the time that she deserves because of how busy I am a lot of times.
Right.
And sleep, lack of sleep.
As all of us get. Yeah, man.
No, but it's a lot sometimes, and it's tough because I don't have office hours or anything like that. I just have to make sure shit gets done and shit's done right.
Right.
And it can take up a lot of time, and I'm always always trying to respond to emails on time. So if shit doesn't get caught up, I try to do it when I get them and stuff. So it can take away from quality time I'm having with somebody. So I think that's the toughest part. It's really not, the worst part about it is not being able to maintain some relationships the way they should be maintained.
Yes. Yeah.
And just like the amount of time that has to go into it, which is a good thing and a bad thing, I guess.
It's a balance, right?
It's a balance.
Yeah.
Which I'm not that good at.
Hey, bro, but each day, hopefully we get better at it. Each month, each year,
That's something I've been struggling with recently, is just like,
sure,
being able to
find time for yourself.
Find time for not just myself, but these other people that I really care for, like my girlfriend. I do have to spend more time with her. And like family, my cousin had a wedding, and I live in the same city as a lot of my family, and I haven't like gotten to reach. I haven't reached out to them or seen them in like 2 years.
Yeah.
To people, that I love, and I get, so that's unfortunate,
Sure.
I get phone calls from like my parents or something, and I like won't call back for like a day or so because I'm like bombarded with work.
A lot of stuff. Right.
So it's like, it's tough to make that happen. And
that's a beautiful balance. It is stressful, and it is hard, and it is like not nice, but it's a good reason to not be getting back to people because you're incredibly busy with work, right? Yeah. You could just be blowing them off, getting into bad shit and like.
And I hope nobody feels like I blow them off.
Right.
I used to go to sleep every night with like all of my emails and messages at 0. Just
like you wouldn't go to sleep until they were at 0.
Yeah,
couldn't have that peace of mind.
I would make sure everything was at 0 just so I knew everything. I had done everything I had to do for the day, and nobody's like waiting to hear back from me.
Yeah. Are there any? All right. Here's a question. Are there any hours that are off limits to respond to people?
No.
Never. Too early, too late. Never. Nothing like that.
I'm always down to. Are you saying for work?
I'm saying you get an email, and it's totally okay for you to respond at 1 a.m. Right?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. The only day I don't respond is on Saturdays. And that's because I'm gigging most of the time on Saturdays.
Right.
And it looks weird if I'm at an event and I'm talking to somebody whose event I'm gonna do later.
Right.
If they're seeing me message at like an event, you know what I mean?
Right.
But like the other day, I got an email from a person I was trying to get a hold of, like for the longest time, for like weeks, at like 2 a.m, and I was up, so I responded, and we had like 4 messages back.
At what point you were
It
way
was
that
like
late?
3 in the morning or something like
Wow.
that. It was hilarious. But no, I as long as they get it in the morning.
What about to send an email, like to initiate
To start a conversation?
Like, is it too, like, like say you were trying to inquire about booking a venue or something like that, like would you not hit them up if it was like 11 p.m.?
If it's via email, I wouldn't mind doing it late.
Got you.
Because a lot of people don't check their email like that.
No, for sure. But I mean, for me personally, I'm like, I think about stuff and then I'm like, shit, I got to do it before I forget. And it'll be like, 4 a.m. when I get up super early or something. And I'm like, I'm going to shoot them the email now. And then it's like, wait, is it too early to write an email? Or it'll be late night and I'll be after my gigs like you're talking about. And you're like, fuck, I didn't email that person. And then you go to write them the email. Then you're like, wait, shit, they're going to read this in the morning and be like, this guy wrote me this message at 11:45 in the morning, 11:45, and I'm reading this in the morning now. It's like, now I understand why he misspelled a couple words. He's probably drinking after his gig or something,
Is this guy drunk emailing me?
Right. He's drunk texting me, man.
Which I've done that before.
All of us have, right? Yeah.
But emails. I've sent emails drunk.
That's awesome.
Not the best.
I mean, it's just like that seal of professionalism. Sometimes I worry gets broken because you're like being, trying to be professional, unprofessional hours.
Yeah. Well, I always feel like, how early do you wake up?
I would say I'm an early person. I mean, when I'm on the road with my pops.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know, right? When I get on the road with my pops, I'm usually up by like, depending on the show hours, anywhere from 5:30 to 7
in the morning.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh,
yeah, it's about 3 a.m. here in New York. So I will not be getting up that early tomorrow morning, but I will absolutely, probably be getting up, around like 9. 10,
oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
I'm not really ever a person that can sleep in until like 11 or 12 or 1.
You haven't been able to do that in a while,
dude. It's a talent that someone like John Maestas possesses because he stays in New Orleans and he stays out till like 5 a.m. You know what I'm saying? So then he gets home and he's like, all right, time to sleep, and I'll wake up whenever the fuck I wake up.
Yeah, it's tough for me.
Are you a night person or are you a morning person? You usually wake up around 12?
No. I can't wake up around that time. If I do, it's because I've had a really crazy like 4 or 5 days where I've only had like 2 or 3 hours of sleep every night and whatnot. But no, I can't do it. I actually I wake up more around 9, 8 or 9. Yeah, 8:45 or 9. But I started boxing recently.
Yeah?
Yeah. And
what got you to start boxing?
Well, I want to not be fat.
But why boxing? Why not Taekwondo? Why not Pilates? Why not running a half
Pilates
marathon?
Because of the name.
Come on, bro. There's hot girls in those classes. I'll take a Pilates class.
You hot girls and working out. The first time I went boxing, I went with my buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just me and him were the only guys in this class.
Yeah, in a boxing class. All girls.
All girls. Most of them. Not all were beautiful, but most of them were beautiful. And I looked at my friend like, yo, it's going to be super easy. Like, all these chicks are in here, And then, like, halfway through the first 15 minutes, man, I was like, I could awful. It was so bad.
You couldn't keep moving your arms.
It was so bad. I sat down and the lady at the receptionist brought apple juice. She's like, here's some apple juice.
Do you want a straw?
Yeah. It's bad. But I actually love, you said you used to do martial arts, right?
Oh yeah, man! I grew up doing karate. All of my family did. Yeah, young.
It's good. I did Taekwondo young.
Awesome.
I a good sense. Like I would, if I had a kid, which I do want some kids at some point in my life, I would have them do one of those. Something like that.
I think any discipline is amazing for kids to learn, especially something like martial arts, because not only are you aiding them with the tools that then allows them to defend themselves, but also, you're instilling discipline, hard work ethics.
And respect, too, is like a big thing in those.
Big time.
Yeah.
And learning how, hopefully, if you're going to the right school, you're learning how to defuse situations so that you don't get into a fight. Like, I remember being in karate, and the saying was always, the best fight is the fight that's not fought.
Mm-hmm.
And I have taken that so literally that I've never been into an actual serious fight in my life.
Well, that's where we're different.
You've been in a couple fights?
When I was in karate, I used to
in taekwondo.
Man,
you pick on people?
I wouldn't pick on people, but I would always get in fights.
Really?
I was.
When was this, middle school, elementary school?
I was in elementary school. Yeah. It was bad. I would fight. It was so bad they took me out of karate.
Dang.
Taekwondo.
Yeah.
I used to fight a whole bunch and shit, and I was very protective of my friends and my older brother. Like if somebody like picked on my older brother, I would take it upon me to beat them up.
Got you, big bro.
Yeah, got him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you get into fights later in life? Or did you stop fighting? Did you put your gloves up after you finished elementary school?
I think the last fight I got in, I lost. That what
You always remember the losses, right?
Yeah.
Those like the ones.
Well, the last street fight I remember getting into, I lost, and it was this kid. In my defense, he was much larger than I was.
So you say.
But he beat the hell out of me in front of my friend's house too.
Oh,
yeah, it was awful.
I was out of elementary school. Was that in high school, or when was that?
No, that was in. I think it might have been like 6th or 7th grade in middle school.
Yeah.
I didn't really get into fights after that. I'm pretty chill now. You know that.
Yeah.
I try not to fight. I actually stop fights, and I'd rather make someone laugh than.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I'm with you, bro.
You like comedy, right?
I love comedy. You kidding me, bro? It's like my favorite. I grew up on Sinbad. I grew up on Paul Rodriguez, on George Lopez.
Who are your if you were to give me like a list of 5, and I'm not saying I just want to know the first 5 comedians. Let's say 7. First 7 comedians that come to your head.
Favorite comedians,
and they don't have to be your favorite.
Just comedians.
I want to hear the first 7 comedians that come to your head.
Well, I'm gonna say those guys again. I said Paul Rodriguez. I said George Lopez, Sinbad, Jerry Seinfeld, Bill Burr, Louis C.K., Joe Rogan.
Okay, that's 7.
Is that 7 right there?
That's 7.
There you go, bro. And Dave Chappelle. How could I forget Dave Chappelle?
No.
Come on now. You already said the 7, right?
I would give you mine. I'm going to give you mine. Dave Chappelle, and this is no order as well.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle, George Carlin, Richard Pryor. Who did I just say?
Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor, Louis. Who did I say? Dave Chappelle, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Lenny Bruce, Norm Macdonald. Louis C.K. Did I say Louis C.K. yet?
Yeah.
No,
not yet. Yeah.
Louis. He's got to be up there.
There's a lot, man. There's so many
comedians.
Amazing.
I'm trying to think of a last one that I absolutely love more than anyone else. Eddie Murphy has to be up there too.
Oof, Eddie Murphy.
And Chris Rock. Too.
Delirious. Still one of my favorite, man.
Yeah.
The bit about Mr. T is my favorite, man. Come here, boy. Damn. That would be a scary image if Mr. T was after you.
Yeah.
Oh man. I think comedy is a lot like music, even though comedians have pointed out the fact that like comedians are always having to write new material, and musicians get famous off of certain songs, and fans only want to hear those famous songs.
Well, there's a whole thing, you've seen that talk. It's like Jerry Seinfeld, Louis C.K., Ricky Gervais, and Chris Rock. You hear him talking about that?
No. What's that?
Jerry Seinfeld is known for not retiring material because of that. And he has a theory. And this is like Chris Rock says that this is our argument. This is what me and Jerry always argue about.
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld says that people go to the show to hear your jokes. The same way, like if you went to see Earth, Wind, and Fire, you want to hear September.
Right.
His idea is like when my fans come to see me, they want to hear, that airplane joke or whatever. But Chris Rock says that no, they're there to see you.
That's right. That is so right.
They're there to see you. And he's like, yeah, but, like if I go see Earth, Wind, and Fire, I want to hear September. I want to hear their hits.
Yes.
But he's like, but for a time, at their prime, you would just want to hear them. Like whatever album they just came out with, which is fire. Like if you were into Prince, you have like Controversy, and then you have like 1999. Like you want to hear like everything, like Purple Rain, and then you want to hear like Parade and like, all this shit. You want to hear the album that he just came out with.
Right.
But I agree, man. The more I watch a lot of interviews of comedians and stuff, and the more I listen to them, the more I'm like, damn, they're like just like musicians.
They're just like musicians, man.
I mean, especially jazz. I think specifically jazz musicians.
That's what I was just gonna say. It's the sense of improvisation and having form, and going out there, not knowing what you're doing, but also knowing exactly what you're doing, and working off of the audience.
Yeah.
If they don't respond, I should say a good jazz band or a good, leader of a band will interact with the audience. And I've been both a good leader and a bad leader whenever I do interact with the audience, or I don't interact with the audience in the sense of like listening to them and singing a slow blues when they actually wanted to hear another samba. You know what I'm saying? So there is that constant interplay of what the audience is receiving and what they're doing. Granted, comedians have it even harder because they're
by themselves.
They're by themselves, not just by themselves, but if the audience does not react, they know it does not work. You know? And they're like, fuck that, I'm not going to do that again. Or I need to change it and tweak it and do it in this way so that the punchline can come out quicker, or the timing is better, or, the way that I say this, has more of an impact, But that can also be interpreted to jazz and how they execute what they didn't execute correctly, right?
For real. And the lifestyle of those two are very similar. I'll watch interviews of these people, man. Like they, we were just in the Village. Those jazz dudes, we went to a jam session. We saw a couple people playing. Yeah, those guys were going over to Smalls right after. They come and they sit in somewhere. They go sit in somewhere else. They go sit in somewhere else again.
Yes,
they're not getting paid to sit in those places, but they're doing it. Right. And those comedians are doing the same thing, man.
Exact same thing.
Making $25 or something to do something.
$10-15 a spot. And they do 20 spots around town or something.
Yeah, it's intense, man. Comedy's amazing. It's incredible, man. And I love I love comics and comedians and the old guys. I love the old guys like Milton Berle and Georgie Jessel and Bob Hope.
So would you ever get up for an open mic and say a couple minutes.
Yeah, that's like one of my bucket list things. In fact, if you go on my phone, one of my notes,
you have some jokes in there?
I have premises to jokes. It's
good,
huge. It's a huge thing. You can scroll through like 3 times. It's just premises to jokes. It's one of my bucket list things. I'd love to do that. I don't think I'd be too good at it. But I would love to. I'd really love to.
That's awesome.
Would you?
Absolutely, I would, man.
Have you written anything at all?
No, but
Let's hear it.
I've definitely. I know, right? That's comedians' favorite thing to do whenever they go on a talk show. Is have the talk show be like, "So, tell us some jokes." It doesn't really work like that. But no, I mean, I would because my brother and one of my best friends back home went up for an open mic night back in Albuquerque at a brewery. We were just all out at the brewery, and it's so funny because I was like, I think I left a gig and I dressed up all nice for that gig. I was wearing my white linen suit with the white pants and the white jacket and my white shirt, and had my ring and my watch on and shit, you know. And these motherfuckers, all of the stand-up comedians that went up to do open mics, not all of them, but I mean the last 4 of them, all would turn and make a reference to me looking like a drug lord, like, "Hey bro, you got the coke?" You know, not knowing that I'm Colombian as well, you know. So it was like, fuck. But my brother and my good friend went up and did a couple minutes, and after that I was like, fuck, what would I
How did
say?
they do?
You know, I think they both did pretty good. I think they both did solid. You know what I'm saying? They had moments of like actually making people laugh, and then they just had moments of like going for it and not working. You know, but I mean, you got to do that. You know, and you got to like figure out what is your way of being funny, and then your way of executing. Right?
You ever watch this video of the world's worst comedian?
The world's worst comedian.
It's like this guy. He goes, it's hilarious. He goes up and he makes these jokes that are just like awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's an Asian guy, and he's like, "Oh, when I came here, I came on a boat with my wife and my 3 kids, and 2 of my kids died. Why is it always the bad daughter that survives?"
Oh my god! Oh, shit! Why couldn't it have been her? That's fucked up. Oh my
but
god.
he's like, his whole thing is
it's
like
all
that.
about just the bad,
It's
fucked
like
up jokes.
all awful jokes like that.
That's amazing, bro.
Yeah, I love comedy.
Now, do you read much?
I did for a while. When I did read, it was more essays. I'd read more essays, and I'd read kind of just like, you know, more like books about like philosophy or like society and shit, you know.
Yeah.
But I never was really into novels too much. There's a couple that I really liked, like 1984 is like,
Whew.
awesome.
George Orwell, powerful book.
Yeah.
Man.
You know, he says something, or no, he doesn't, actually. It's someone else. Ray Bradbury, the guy who wrote Fahrenheit 451.
Another wonderful book. Yeah.
He says in an interview, it's pretty intense. He says, if you're living and you're not doing something that you love, you should kill yourself.
Wow.
And
it's not dark at all.
no, but it's in, that's what I was saying.
A lot of people would be killing themselves, bro.
But it comes, I think it's more like there's no point of living if you're not doing something that you love. And it means, do you have to do it as a career? I don't think that's what he's saying.
Do you think that all the people out there Joe Rogan has this conversation a couple of times on his podcast where he talks about if there was universal income for all people in the United States to receive a pension or receive not a pension, excuse me, a salary, a yearly salary where they wouldn't have to work. Do you think that all of the people would have like a love?
Mm-mm.
So
No.
like, how would they? You know what I'm saying? How would they spend their time?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think everything has to be like art,
Right.
or anything like that. Maybe some people what they love is like we were saying earlier, is they get a satisfaction out of making other people happy, some kind of customer service thing, or they really enjoy just like helping people in one way or another. You know, so you like music, or you like art, you like writing, you like reading or something.
Right.
But I think everybody has something that they love, or something that they enjoy, or something that really grasps their attention, or something that interests them.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're not doing anything, if you have something, then why not do it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I dig that, man. I love it.
Yeah. Do you read a lot?
I love reading, man. I've been getting into it more recently. When I was in high school, when I was young, I used to love reading. When I was in middle school, I read a good bit. When I was in high school, I loved reading, and when I was in college, I loved reading music biographies. And then past that, I started getting back into my own loves with just fiction. I fucking love reading fiction, man. Just getting taken on a journey by a story by a great writer. But yeah. Actually, for this trip, I brought Anthony Bourdain's book that made him famous. You know, just kind of wanted to dig into that. And
that's some sad shit, right?
It's very sad shit, man. Talk about people taking their life and stuff. That broke my heart, you know, a lot, hearing about that. And going back and seeing some of his episodes of the show was, I mean,
that show was amazing,
brings tears to my eyes, man. Yeah. Oh, yeah, amazing show, man.
And it's crazy how somebody who... you know, opened like your eyes to so many things. It's just like tired of it. He's like, you know, sick of his life so much that's intense. Like when you feel like it's not worth it anymore.
I mean, I wonder what he's thinking, man, because it's such a deep thing to realize what brings you to the point of not wanting to live anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and what demons he was facing. I mean, you know, he was, you know, he did heroin. He was a drug addict for many years, and then he stopped doing all that stuff, and then, you know, got super into jiu-jitsu in his later years and stuff. And it was always that search for him of like not just what he loved, but also what brought him joy.
Yeah.
Right? And then that with the struggle against quote unquote darkness or his demons.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's just like the weight gets too much, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
It's crazy.
It's a powerful thing, man. So Gabe, when is Gabe Otero's album gonna come out? When do you see an album of Gabe Otero's music come out? In like 10 years, in 20 years, in 2 years? And
honestly, I've been thinking about doing something here in the city. I'm thinking about getting old like songs that are like super in the cut that aren't super popular, and doing covers of them with people in the city, and and getting it recorded like old school, all in one room.
yeah.
Horns like one mic, and strings like two mics and stuff, and just record it like that.
I love the old style. That's tight. That's
Two
awesome.
guitars, bass, couple keyboards, drums, percussion. I've been really thinking about that, but I don't know when that's gonna happen. I don't know if it's gonna happen.
Hey,
anytime
bro,
soon, but
I hope you move towards that, man, because we gotta do like, even though you're killing it and doing your thing over here, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to think that you have to be writing all your own songs in order to put something out of your own. You know what I'm saying? It's like what you just said, like that's an awesome idea, you know, and like why the fuck not, you know? Eventually though, I know you got some little Gabe ideas in there, and that shit will seep its way into your bones and be like, oh shit, I gotta put out something of my own, you know, because
maybe.
then little Gabe Jr. is gonna come around, or you know, whoever the daughter's gonna be, and they're gonna be like, what does daddy do? Like, not what did daddy cover, but like, what is daddy? Who is daddy? You know?
You know Nathan East?
I love Nathan East, sure, yeah.
I think he released his first album as a lead man like
recently, right?
4 years ago. Or
yeah,
something like that.
Oh yeah, man.
And
I mean, when you got such huge gigs as Nathan East did,
Yeah.
it's not like you really had ever the need or opportunity to. Maybe he did have many opportunities, but
But again, I don't think a lot of the songs aren't even his. They're just covers.
Well, there you go, man.
Yeah.
Come on,
But that's,
why not, right?
yeah. A friend of mine,
Especially, if I may just say, especially now that you're doing well for yourself, man, my man, because today or tomorrow could come and you won't be doing so good for yourself, and you won't be in a place where financially you're able to, fork out the funds to be able to pay for it. Because I love crowdfunding things, but I might be putting out a crowdfunding thing for my next album, because I totally underestimated how much it was going to cost me to put my album out there. John Rangel was a dude that I'd hit up to try and bring on board as my producer, and he quoted me $13,000 for my album. And I was like, and he's like, yeah, you should raise that with GoFundMe. And I got turned off by that because I didn't want to raise money through asking people for money.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do it myself. The very first, I just wanted to fucking do it. I've been working like, what the fuck was this work for? As well as like, why am I going to ask people for money for something that I could work for? Like, I'm willing and able to, you know? As well as like, if I really need the money, I can just go get a loan from the bank. And so that's what I did. Took a loan out on my car title and, got $5,000 from the bank, and the rest of it, I just forked it up. And my album ended up costing me about $16,000 to $17,000.
Jesus. On what?
I mean, the amount of time you spend in the studio, your musicians, the amount of time that you have to go back in the studio to do the mixing, and then mastering, and then the album artwork, and then all of the expenses that surround those travels and those things.
I'm drawing my album artwork.
Come on, you know what I'm saying? I used one of my sculptures, so I took the photo and I made the sculpture for my album artwork too. You know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't. Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to make this a $15,000 album, bro.
That being said, my album isn't coming out for another 25 years
until I have the money. No. What I'm telling you is that. While you have a little bit of savings in the bank, or money in the bank, like set that goal out for yourself, like a year from now. You know what I'm saying?
Honestly,
because why not?
Honestly, the goal is to have a couple days in the studio.
Yeah,
like 2 days in the studio.
Yeah,
I have a good studio down to do it and whatnot. And I think I might be able to do it like in January.
Bro,
I gotta find the song, so it's
January is when I recorded my album.
Oh yeah,
it's a wonderful month, man. I was gonna record it the week of Christmas, and then Solange actually pushed me out of the recording studio that I was at.
Oh shit.
Yeah, the recording studio that I record my album as a state-of-the-art recording studio out of New Orleans called the Parlor Recording Studio.
Nice. Oh yeah.
And amazing space. It has a Neve console board, like incredible recording studio all around. But it costs $800 a day to record, to rent it out. And she wanted to rent it out for the whole week, which cost $5,600 compared to what I wanted to rent it out for, which was just 2 days, which is $1,600.
Yeah.
So they asked me if I would be willing to change my date, and he would take care of one of my expenses. And one of the days,
oh shit,
it was awesome of him, amazing of him. But also just because of the trouble of like having to move the date and all this stuff, and it was close to it, Yeah. But whenever you get around to doing it, bro, like just shoot that date. You know what I'm saying? Because you'll never be ready.
Yeah.
Right. That date is just gonna creep up on you, and then that date coming up on you is gonna put the pressure on you to like finish everything before the deadline and just get into the studio and put out that album of old songs with a badass Gabe rendition on them. And why the fuck not? Here's the other cool reason why.
Do it too, yeah.
Here's the other reason why is because then you go out and do gigs now, and guess what? You got another form of making money. You're not just making money off the tips that the band has on stage, but you've also got a CD over there. And they're like, man, I love that bass player. And you're like, oh, thank you so much, man. I'm actually selling one of these beautiful CDs for a small price of $14.99.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what's even more for me? It's I was thinking about recording and not even releasing it, honestly. I just wanted it for myself. A friend of mine, my buddy Nate, he's a bass player, plays for like a lot of, people around, like Trey Songz and those people. He's told me one time, he's like, if nobody's gonna know about you if you're not ever on record.
That's so true, man. So true.
You know, and it's sad, man. I see people I really look up to, and musicians that are amazing, that nobody else in the world is going to know is like amazing because they're not on something.
They're not. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
They're not on something, and not only are they not on something, but you know, this is actually something I was hoping we could get into. But you know, I'm just going to end it there and then move into this next point because I think it's pretty important.
All right.
And it has to do with finances as a musician.
Sure.
Musicians are not good with their money for the most part.
Notoriously.
And I think I found out why.
Because we don't have any?
I think I know
There's
why.
my comedian joke.
Yeah, there you go.
Why is that? Why do you think it is?
I don't think musicians don't make money. I think musicians make pretty good money, can make pretty good money. Even if you're not in a really, you know, you can make pretty good money as a musician.
Sure.
There's a couple things that come into play, though. One is living within your means. And two, and this is the thing that really gets us, unlike people with jobs, like careers, who are paid every 2 weeks, we're paid like every day or every other day.
Yes.
So we're not able to see something in
Substantial.
terms of a month.
Yes.
We think of it, oh, okay, I'm going to make, you know,
got another $100. What am I going to do?
to make $10 today and I'm going to make $10 tomorrow.
Yep.
So I can use these $10 today because I know I'm going to have $10 tomorrow.
That's so right. That is so right.
And that's an issue.
Or hey, it'll be fine. I got to do this now, but I got 2 gigs coming up this weekend.
Yeah. That's bad. So what I did, and what a friend of mine who's really good with his money, you know, we were talking about that, you know, opening up an account for your retirement as a musician, an IRA account, you know. We can retire as musicians.
It's so true. No, we certainly have the ability. It's the organization and the true desire.
Yeah, and I don't know about you. I don't want to have to do a gig when I'm 70 or 80.
Yes.
I want to be able to.
Yes.
But I don't want to be in a position where I have to do a gig to be able to pay my rent.
Right.
And we as like musicians collectively have to be more on top of that.
That's so right, man. I think what you're speaking about is something that all of us deal with, and the only way that I've learned to start dealing with that myself is thanks to my mother. Actually, my mother has been like my financial advisor, really just my bookkeeper, I should say, because every check that I get, every gig that I get paid for, I shouldn't say every gig because certainly there are some gigs where I just keep all the money, but almost every occasion that I'm making some kind of money, I take 40% of that.
There you go.
And throw that right into my mother's hands.
That's it.
Why? Because then she takes that money and I can't touch it. And guess what? Like that money and that ethic and that drive to constantly save like just under half of everything that I make allowed me to pay off that $5,000 loan within a year of taking it out after my album.
Mm-hmm.
And it allowed me the ability to be able to have freedom.
Yeah. It's intense. It's intense, and it's sad to see fellow musicians, man, in a situation like that. Musicians who I know who are making enough money to be able to do what you're saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's hard, man. It's like the issue of athletes dealing with all of this money that they never had growing up and they don't know how to deal with, and then they retire and then they're broke because they were living like what the first thing you said, which is living within your means.
Yeah.
And a lot of people start doing better and they start living better.
Well, what do you because I'm sure you see this a lot too, and it's not a happy thing. What do you what are we going to do for our brethren, our musician brethren, to make sure it doesn't happen to that extent? Because I've always, I recommend every musician that is a buddy of mine. You even heard me today telling my buddy to set up his LLC over there.
It's a reality, man.
Yeah,
It's like what we were talking about, John. It's about trying to empower each other.
Yeah.
To do better for ourselves. And the only way I've seen that I can actually do that is I want to say by example, but that's not true. It's not like you can
just
show people your savings account and be like, look what I did. It's like, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But hopefully by...
Maybe this right here.
I don't know. You're right. You're right. I think this podcast can serve a lot of purposes. And one of the purposes certainly that I wanted to help, that I wanted to do is to help out musicians in not just making a living, but have a better life for themselves.
Yeah.
In what you're talking about, which is financially and beyond that, like health-wise. Health-wise is something that I've thought about a lot and I've worried about a lot because I've dealt with health issues myself in terms of tendinitis and issues with my shoulders, and it's something that all of us musicians deal with as well, not just the financial issues, but then the financial issues that go along with all of our health problems that then we're not able to address because we don't have any finances. I think that it has to be okay for people to recognize that they need another job. In a city like New Mexico, people don't worry about that, and they know that, and that's why they have that other job. And I sadly think that's why a lot of people also are okay with complacency, But I don't know, man. I think for sure the first step is talking about it,
Yeah, I think you should never be ashamed to get a job, right?
You should never be ashamed to try and look for another form of, like, we think because we're artists that we're gonna that it's gonna damage our ego because we have to become a server again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if that's the way you think and if that's what you truly believe, then okay, but you don't have to look at it that way.
Yeah.
You can just look at it like, hey man, I got to put in these extra hours for my daughter at home that is hungry.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know. I don't think that having a family will put the responsibility on people because then people just run from their problems. But I don't know, man. I think talking about it would definitely be the biggest thing, because then it's like what you're talking about, where you have friends and and you being in a position where you pay people, and like me being in a position where sometimes when I hire musicians I pay them as well. Yes, I can tell them, hey bro, don't spend that all in one place, but I don't want to sound like the Ray movie where it's like, like, hey, don't do this with your money. It's like, man, motherfucker, don't tell me what to do with my money.
Yeah.
Like I spend it wherever I please, and I do believe that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what I do encourage musicians to do is to pay yourself. Why? Because, bro, you got paid $100 last night, or you got paid $100 last Saturday. Where are those $100? And musicians are like, gas, food, alcohol, and I'm like, did you pay any of those $100 to yourself so that you can keep those $100? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we think because we got paid it that it's ours, and then we just go spend it.
Yeah.
But like, that money's gone, And so I don't know, man. I think that's definitely a start, and that's something that I've had conversations with people about.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. It's important, man. I can't get over, because I think of these musicians that I really respect, who had to do gigs till they were, till they died because they couldn't pay. That's very unfortunate. People who had good gigs, really good gigs, people who made a lot of money, played on a lot of like records, who I respect more than, who play on records that me and you and everybody who's listening to this listens to constantly. I know people who've played on some of those records that are 80s hits.
Yeah.
That are struggling, man. We're struggling and had to play until they died. And I personally don't want to be in that situation. I know you don't want to be in a situation where you have to play when you're that old. And it's like what you said, man. Every time you get paid a gig, regardless of how much money it is, if you get paid $50, if you get, I don't know about getting 40% of $50, but at least
come on, you can throw $20 of that in the piggy bank. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to. It hurts.
Hard,
You know what I'm saying? You're like, oh, I only got $30, but that $20 ain't gonna be touched.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Until you bust out the hammer and break that piggy bank. Right?
Yeah. And a place where you can't touch it is an IRA account. So put your shit in an IRA account.
IRA account, create an LLC and study and learn about what the fucking LLC is, because if you have a business, well, not only if you have a business, but then you got to learn how to do your taxes better. And if you're an LLC, then you got to file yourself as an employee of that LLC and pay it's like, there's so many routes as musicians that we can learn financially to put ourselves in better situations.
Yeah. And even
taxes, man. Taxes is something we never talk about, learn about. It's not talked about in the music world of like how you do your taxes, bro.
And if you're a
TurboTax? No.
If you're your company can write off more shit, guys.
I mean, when you do research into that stuff, it's like you learn about what tax write-offs you can have, and then as musicians we realize, hey bro, we can write off all kinds of stuff. Any clothes we have,
strings you bought,
anytime we have dinner, like tonight you were so beautifully gracious and treated me to dinner, you could write that off as a business expense.
Done.
And right, and like doing those things are the little things that not just help us at the end of the year, the fiscal year, as we have to pay Uncle Sam, but also for down the road.
Definitely.
Empowering, bro. This podcast certainly is about it. Bubble Bath Records is about it.
Yeah.
But I think us being in the positions that we're in, it's like information, conversation, awareness about these things. Discourse is absolutely needed.
Yeah.
And dude, I'm happy to have you on the podcast, bro. We're coming up on 2 hours, man, and this thing's flying by.
Wow.
I know we could probably do another 2, 3, 4 hours, bro.
No, this is great, man. I was listening to some of these, and it's great.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to hearing these other ones, too.
Hey, man, little by little, bro. It's going to be wonderful. I'm happy to be here in New York doing this with you. I'm going to have some other New York people soon as well, and go down to New Orleans, do some stuff in New Orleans, do a podcast in Philly, and then get back to New Mexico, man.
Nice.
Get to work. So anything you want to share with the people before we wrap this up, my man? Anything you want to tell people in New Mexico, tell people in New York, anything you want to tell the future young aspiring bass players, booking agents?
In what way? Well, I think an important thing is always to support, to support people where you live, whether it's instead of going to like a chain like McDonald's and going to like a local chain or something, it's always good to support your people. And if you go out to a gig like Ben Michaels, don't go out and not buy anything there, because that's what keeps a gig. Not you showing up, but you buying something.
That's right. And it's okay if you don't like the enchiladas there. Just like
I love the enchiladas.
I love the enchiladas there. But like, just get a beer, or just get some flan or something, because when you show up to sit in or just check out the music, like that's awesome. But you are in a way jeopardizing our gig, because then it's like the guy's like, hey man, you got all these people showing up and they don't buy anything. I didn't make any money, so how am I going to pay you? Yeah. And that is the circle for sure.
Definitely.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah. And I have no words of encouragement for anyone.
Drop out of school, kids.
Drop out of school. Don't do theory. Listen to music instead.
Listen. I love it, bro.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You coming to New Mexico anytime soon, my man?
I want to. I don't have any plans to yet. I don't have a flight yet, but I try to go sometime around
Christmas time or something.
I can't go during Christmas time. I'm too busy over here.
Christmas time is here.
I hear that whole album, man. It's good,
dude. He's the man.
It's fucking amazing. He died young too.
Victor, I didn't know that.
That wasn't Victor Gould. What?
Who are you talking about?
That guy. I forget his name. It's not Victor though. It's the guy who.
Let's see.
He's a pianist.
Yeah, I thought it was Victor.
It's some
Let's see. I you were totally right. Christmas time is here. Let's see.
Am I wrong?
Vince Guaraldi.
That's who it is.
Victor Gould. Who's Victor Gould? I don't even know that.
He's a writer. Isn't he a writer, Victor Gould?
He is, yeah. Vince
Oh,
Guaraldi.
no. Wait, talking about Gould as a pianist.
No, that's Glenn Gould.
Glenn Gould, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
That's awesome.
Did I just come up with that shit? Victor Gould. He's a writer, isn't he? Like an old jazz writer?
He could be. Let's see what good old Google has to say. He's a musical artist. Victor Gould, Clockwork, jazz, crisscross. He's another jazz artist.
Okay. That's who it is.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny,
shit.
Man. My man Gabe, it's been an honor having you on Our Talk Music, bro.
Man, thanks for having me.
I look forward to having you on down the road, bro, in New Mexico or here in New York down the road.
Next time I'm there, I want to do this again. This is great. I enjoy this, and it's. I know we're trying to get off, but I think it's
what, come on now. We ain't trying to get off entirely, bro.
No,
if you want to keep going, we can keep going.
I think it's especially like for New Mexicans, I feel like there's always kind of been this. Everybody wants something more in New Mexico.
Yeah,
and I feel like this is one of those things that, you know. Everybody wants something more, but nobody wants to do anything about it, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like people want more live music, but they won't go listen to live music, or people want, you know, better food or whatever, but they don't really go out to eat. You know. And,
do you think that's laziness, or what do you think that is?
It's complacency, I think. Complacency is like the worst thing you can be, right? Complacent.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah.
And that's again why I recommend listening to music or traveling. That's why that's what changes you, what makes you different from you, and a lot of the people of us that moved makes us different from people who haven't moved, not just from New Mexico but from most places, is that they haven't experienced anything else from outside of what they have.
Yeah.
So they stay where they are. They still think I thought I was good until I moved here and I sucked ass. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Not literally. No, really.
Yeah.
And it's intense. But yeah.
I think growing, certainly a part of growing is traveling. And certainly a part of growing is getting out of those old like habits that we sometimes desire and want, but like we won't act on. You know,
when you moved to New Orleans, did you feel like I thought I was? You said this, right? That you thought everything you thought you were was kind of just like, oh wait, that's not really me.
Oh, that's without a doubt, man.
Did you feel like, yo, I'm not as good as I thought I was?
It wasn't just that I realized that. It was I realized that there are so many other young musicians out there, hungrier, working harder, putting in more hours. And that idea that people talk about that talent isn't enough, I think that's so true, man. And when I went to New Orleans, I felt that. Not to say that I felt like I got outran, but I definitely felt the wonderful challenge of being a medium-sized fish now inside of the pool of many, many other medium-sized fish and a bunch of large-ass fucking fish, you know?
Yeah.
As well as, like, it was fucking inspiring for me to go out every single night and hear these guys that were my age, younger than me and older than me, and fucking killing it. Like, playing so much guitar. And so, like, yes, I had my belief shattered totally of, like, what I thought I ought to be as a musician. But then beyond that, it was like, yes, I got my ass handed to me many times by other guitar players or keyboard players or even horn players or bass players that would hand it to me. Yeah. But putting myself in that fire of experiencing those things made me truly question, like, who am I? You know, not to say that, like, I'm not this killer musician that I thought I was. No. It's that I had thought that I was supposed to become a jazz musician. I thought I was supposed to follow the order of like the rule of order, like what was happening next. You know, it was like I was in school, in middle school playing guitar. Okay, now I went to great high schools, continue playing guitar, got into some choir. University, okay, you go study music. And then after you study music, you go and do music. And you are a musician.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden I went out there and it was just like, yes, I'm not the best musician. I'm not the best guitar player. And yes, I need to fucking go practice. But like, also, like, these guys were born into this tradition. Like so many musicians I met in New Orleans, their parents were jazz musicians or jazz absolute lovers or supporters or something. And to see the connection they had with music and with jazz specifically made me realize that my connection with music and jazz was a totally different definition of what these guys had felt. Mm-hmm. And it freed me to ask that question of who I am, as well as ask myself the question of what do I truly want to be, you know, and not act out of fear of like, maybe I won't be that one day, but I am not that. These guys are that and embody that. And I'm grateful that I found these guys that do this thing that I thought I was or wanted to become, which is a great jazz guitar player. But now that you've done that, I can say, okay, that is being done right now by guys that are working much harder than me and sounding much better than me. What can I go do? Mm-hmm. You know? I was very grateful and still am very grateful for New Orleans every time I go there. You know, it's a beautiful city, man. I mean, any city anyone goes to and has the experience of self-discovery through the experiences they go through and through the fire they get put into whenever they get put on a gig with amazing fucking musicians that play circles around you and make you realize how much you need to go home and practice. Those are the growing experiences.
Those are the best gigs.
Those are the best. Those are the best.
God.
And not only that, but then after that, it was like, I don't want to play with people that are not as good as me. And not to say that in an egotistical way at all. It's just when you were playing with like the best musicians that you could hire or find, or you get called for a gig with some of the baddest musicians, you have to reach, you know? And I love that.
It's like a refreshing feeling. It's scary at first, you know?
Yeah.
I remember the first time I had a gig with Nat Townsley, I was like freaking out. I called like 4 people. I was like, yo, man, I have a gig with Nat Townsley.
Yeah.
Man, I did this gig, and Nat Townsley, for those who don't know, is like an amazing, legendary drummer. You know, he's like a New York legend for drumming. The blueprint for a lot of New York drummers is Nat Townsley. Plays with everybody, you know. Everyone from like Joe Zawinul back in the day to Shaka and Alejandro Sanz and like everybody. But anyways, you're used to playing with musicians who are at a certain caliber. Then when you play with somebody who has complete control of their instrument, so much so that they can control everything that's going on, not just in their instrument, but how you play, how the pianist plays. That's a whole nother level of like musicianship, which I'm sorry, I know we're gonna end, but again, tangent here.
Come on, bro, don't worry about that.
But it reminds me of the kind of musician that I found out that I am. And for the longest time, I wanted to be like a shredding bass player, you know, super, you know, I loved just soloing and playing over shit and like, you know, for lack of a better word, like doing some gospel chops over stuff and whatever. But the more I played and the more I listened to music, because I listen to like a lot of music, the kind of musicians that I like and I gravitate to really were not like that at all. I mean, I felt like, okay, I'm playing in like church, I'm playing in like these gospel groups, and I'm doing this, so that's how I'm supposed to sound. But the musicians that I liked weren't like that at all.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they're musicians who are subtle. Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
who are, I think, in my opinion, the best musicians. Let me know what you think about this. The best musicians are the musicians who do a gig and you're happy, and it's not like they do so much that you are like blown away, like, oh my gosh, you know, but they're so amazing that when they can't make a gig and somebody else does a gig, the whole bottom drops out. Like everything that was on the gig before like leaves, and you're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
what just happened? All I did was change a bass player or a drummer or something.
Right.
I think those are my favorite kinds of musicians, you know?
Yeah, you realize the key factor they are.
Yeah. And it's, you know, goes back to what we were saying about feel and stuff, but being around those better musicians made me realize that was the role that I should be playing in a band setting. And I think that's why I get called for stuff, is because I've done gigs. I did a gig one time, man, and apparently the drummer was not good, not a good drummer. Not a good drummer at all. But I was subbing for a bass player on this gig, and I played, and she told me, the band leader told me, this is the best this drummer has ever sounded, and fired her bass player after I played with her drummer. She fired him.
Damn. Yep.
Not for me, because I wasn't available for any gigs.
Right,
I didn't end up doing the gig, but she fired her bass player because he didn't know how to play with a drummer. You know what I mean? So
it's an experience, bro. It's an experience of like when someone feels how things should feel, and then they're like, oh, now I realize that this guy's not doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's a trip, man. It's a trip. It's been a long time since you and I played a gig together, bro.
We haven't played a gig together. We played a little bit together last time I was in New Mexico.
Just a little bit, bro.
Intoxicated.
We'll have to see about doing something different about that, bro. Whenever you come out to New Mexico.
Yeah, when I go back, let's do something.
Absolutely. I'll book some
I
stuff,
want to
bro.
do something at somewhere. I don't know. We got to pick somewhere and just do something.
We'll do a couple different gigs, bro. We'll go up to Taos. We'll go up to Santa Fe.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Absolutely, bro.
Me, you, and who?
There's a lot of options, bro. PP3. You can get Logan in town.
Oh, I love Logan.
You can get a couple of options, bro. There's a bunch of badass drummers out there.
Yeah. How's Reed Easterwood doing?
Reed Easterwood's doing good, man. He's keeping on with his
lawyering.
With his lawyering, bro. Yeah.
I called him. He's such a weird guy. I love him so much, right?
Yeah.
I called him while I was over there, and he didn't answer.
Yeah.
And that was, how long ago was that? That was like a month.
Couple months ago, yeah.
Couple months ago?
Yeah.
And I got a call like last week of him returning my call.
That is Reed. That is totally Reed.
Yeah, man.
Hey, man. Sorry. Just you know how it is, man. Just been crazy busy.
I saw him here.
Nice. He came out to New York?
He came out. He has a friend here that he was visiting.
Sweet.
And we went out to a steakhouse and
nice.
saw each other.
Nice, bro.
I had my first drink with him.
Ooh.
The first time I ever got a little tipsy was with him.
Really?
Yeah, we were doing a gig at Tamaya.
Yeah.
Remember that resort?
Oh, yeah.
Up there. And I was underage, actually.
Shh.
Yeah. And we're doing a duo gig.
Sorry, Mom.
We're doing a duo gig, and he's like, hey, come to the bar with me. And we go to the bar. And mind you, for those who don't know me, I was underage, but I'd say more mature than most people for the age I was.
You were rocking the mustache back then, too, right? Yeah.
So we go to the bar, and he orders 2 whiskey neats and 2 Sam Adams.
Ooh, that's where you got into whiskeys, huh?
That's where I got into whiskeys.
Wow.
Reed Easterwood. But anyways, I drank that. I remember being scared to drink it. And then I drank, and then I played, and I sounded so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, this is bad. I'm never going to do this again. But I had to drive back, so I like stayed in my car until I sobered up. Yeah. What a country.
What an experience, man.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. I'll stop talking.
Come on, brother Gabe. I appreciate you being on the podcast, man. Come on now.
No, this is...
We could keep talking for hours, bro. I know that. We're going to get the part 2 in. Absolutely, my man.
That'd be great.
Yo. Thank you for doing this, brother Gabe.
Thank you.